So tonight we have a special guest who's come up just tonight from Sydney to come to our meeting, and he's going back tomorrow. Dr. Drew is a professional Caltech Cambridge CSIRO research scientist. In 1981 he took a PhD in chemistry at Caltech, where he did several of the first high-resolution X-ray structures of DNA. He then next spent 5 years doing postdoctoral research on DNA and chromosomes at the MRC Laboratory of Molecular Biology in Cambridge, England. He's done a lot of work actually. Besides his X-ray work on DNA, Horace helped to develop several gene therapy or PCR diagnostic medical techniques and was part of the CSIRO team, which won a Eureka Award in 2017 for medical innovation by developing a new and more sensitive blood test for colorectal cancer. Now, Horace has done a lot of things, but in 1990 he led a small scientific group which analysed in private labs at his own expense possible alien DNA samples in collaboration with Australian UFO investigator Bill Chalker. And the most possibly alien of these samples was a long clear head hair from the Peter Curie contact case in 1992. The mitochondrial DNA from a strange alien woman's hair which had some skin attached from her scalp, which was too rare for Peter to have found it accidentally from any normal hair in Sydney, and it showed a rare Celtic genotype. So some of you may be aware of the book that published all that, The Hair of the Alien by Bill Chalker, with Horace's work in there. So without any further ado, I would really like to welcome our special guest tonight, and please give a warm welcome, Dr. Horace Drew.
Thank you very much, and thank everyone for coming out. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Is everything fine? Today we're going to have a visual wonder of crop circles. How many people know about crop circles here already? Do people don't know at all? It's okay if you don't know. Okay, people know about crop circles. So, oh, sorry, what's happening to this thing? So, I'm going to show you, today we're going to talk about crop circles as a survey first, in the first part, half. So all the historical crop circles and some basic sociology. And then in the second half, we're going to talk about the 2018 crop circles and some codes that suggest when extraterrestrials might arrive on Earth, which will be of interest to everybody. It won't be that long. Put your hands up. So we're going to get right into it, and I'll see how it goes. Now, the interesting thing was, before I gave this talk, I thought it would be quite routine. However, in the last month, all the crop circle people have had very heavy intel attacks on us, computer attacks, just everything you could possibly imagine. So what I'm saying is, you can't believe it, but it's true. What I'm saying is now, as of October 18, crop circles have become forbidden knowledge. And why do you think that might be? When you get a crop circle saying mothership in code on both sides, an alien-looking script, why would it become forbidden knowledge? Maybe the mothership's coming our way, you know? And over the last month, we've had some truly 9/11 or Pearl Harbor type attacks on all of us. And I can document it. We're doing all sorts of legal measures against it. Now, why would they do this unless crop circles are real and the governments have something to hide? What possible purpose would there be? Not just me, but a lot of other crop circle researchers. It's consumed my time unexpectedly for the last month. And if anybody wants to hear about it, they can, but we're getting heavily attacked. There may not be any crop circles on Facebook in 2019. They're trying to ban them all. To let you know, they're trying to eliminate the phenomenon. They'll appear, but nobody will see them. Do you understand? That's the situation right now. Either they're going to win or we're going to win. We'll see what happens. So I'll tell you what's happening, and now let's get into, we're going to explore what is so dangerous about crop circles to the governments and the intel agencies, these beautiful creations. You're going to explore that with me. I'm going to make it as entertaining as possible, and we're going to look into the whole phenomenon, understand it all, and you're going to understand as much as possible why is this a threat to our governments, these beautiful things. So let's look more closely at some of the best crop circles from 2017 or 2018 to figure out why all this is happening. Why do they get so upset over this? And we're going to look at these in more detail. This is just a quick summary of some that were in 2017. Now first, let's review some of the best crop pictures from 1996 to 2016. Prepare to be amazed. Are you ready? Yep. Your head's going to break. All those things go, oh no. And these are the 4 major crop circle reporting websites. Crop Circle Connector, my friend Mark Fussell and Julian Gibsoni, and their photographers. Temporary Temples, Steve Alexander and Karen Alexander, a wonderful couple. Lucy Pringle, a very long-term researcher, excellent photos. And my friend Paul Jacobs at Core Group Initiative. They do all the primary reporting because they live in England. And thanks to all these people. Now, 1996, the most famous event, a large and complex crop picture appeared near Stonehenge in the late afternoon of July 7, 1996, after planes had been flying over all day and saw nothing. And here it was. There's Stonehenge, cars going past, and the field right next to Stonehenge, we had this big thing just appeared within less than 15 minutes in broad daylight about 5 in the afternoon. Less than 15 minutes. There was a mist. There was actually a traffic hazard caused by it. Cars backed up to watch the mist. And here it is in detail. Now obviously right away that was a defining event. We knew crop circles were real after that. They appeared very quickly, this big complex. They call it the Julia set. Now why would they draw, the extraterrestrials draw this next to, or time travelers draw this next to Stonehenge? What does it mean? It means these are the ways they represent monthly phases of the moon. They studied the moon phases at Stonehenge a long time ago with the stones, and this is their way of doing it. And you can see these are monthly phases of the moon represented as a spiral. And here's the crop picture. So they're saying here's another way to represent monthly phases of the moon. And there are actually 29 of these things. Anyway, if you look at it very carefully, it agrees quite well with how you would study moon phases by a temple like Stonehenge. So there's a tremendous intellect to it. Everybody happy with that? Now let's keep going. Now in 1999, a basket weave appeared, and they got photographed just before the farmer cut it out. Now this is no intellect, but it's just amazing graphically. Look at this. Do you think anybody made this with rope and boards? Does anybody think that? Look at the basket weave and all these things. Let's zoom in now, look a little more closely. Look at that. These are what we call here basket weave. And it's impossible, no one's ever done that, and the scale of the thing. So visually, that's just visual, but it's just an amazing sort of thing to do, okay? Visually. Let's keep going. In the most famous one, Milk Hill, driving rainstorm, middle of the night, August 12, 2001. There were people there at 12 o'clock, it wasn't there. 4 in the morning, it was there. Nobody saw anything. The rain was just torrentously pouring down. They came in the next morning, there were no muddy stems, nobody had been stepping anywhere. And what did they see? This massive thing, that's a person. This is photographed by Steve Alexander, very famous. The next morning, the top of Milk Hill, there's a person sitting in the middle and just goes everywhere. I forgot how many circles, but just massive number of circles. Not a trace of anybody walking, no mud. And here's the overall view. Now, again, we've got a big thing where 100% no human being could have done this. I don't care what they say in the newspaper, the debunking magazines, the whatever, you know. And does anybody think a human beings did this in a driving rainstorm, 4 hours in the dark, left no muddy footprints, and crop pristine anywhere? No, of course not. It's impossible. They had a crop circle challenge some years ago where the debunkers were offered $100,000 to reproduce this, and they refused. By an actress, a British actress, offered the money, and they refused, of course, because they would fail. Now, let's go on. This is another famous one. July 7, 2007, they call it 777. A picture appeared in front of 3 researchers who were watching and filming from Knapp Hill in Eastfield. He had his cameras out, like Winston Keach and Gary King and Paula, where they were watching all night because it was 777, it was a popular field, and they thought, well, maybe a crop picture appeared there, and it did. And this was on 4 cameras, 2 visible, 2 infrared, by a very expert photographer. And here it was. 3 a.m., they don't see anything. Till 3 a.m., there's a flash of lightning. First they see this at 3:20, this at 3:20 a.m., just the trace of it. And then it gets a bit lighter, and they see this huge thing, and then this huge thing about 4 a.m. And they walk down, there's nobody there. 300 meters across rolling hills. I walked through that a couple of weeks later. It's 3 football fields long. We're talking about 3 football fields and 37 tons of flattened wheat. Now, what does it mean? Now, you're really going to be shocked. Do you know what this means? Oh, I forgot one more slide. This shows the time course. Between 3 and 3:20, it appeared like that. And the next morning, it was 300 meters long. They took an aerial photograph, and the British military closed the field shortly afterward. So that was filmed by the British military helicopters, where they evidently detected the event. And what does it mean? The holy name of God in Sanskrit. The Om symbol with details. Actually, I saw this on a box in the Blue Mountains, and I got it for my birthday present. So I had the photograph there. It's the holy name of God in Sanskrit. So it's just like God, or the Om, is giving us this holy symbol and saying, here I am. And that should be highly impressive. Should everybody in the world know about this? What do you think? Should this be something everybody should know? Does it harm anybody? That there's some extraterrestrial godlike presence, the Om symbol, the Om is the great symbol, right? Nobody's threatened, but except the governments. The farmer was very threatened, 37 tons of wheat. He did lose a lot. Now, we're not even close to quitting. We're going to continue this process a little bit. The next big spectacular one was a couple years later, called the Quetzalcoatl headdress near Silbury Hill on July 5, 2009. Now, there were 4 witnesses there with the cameras. There was a film crew from California, and they were spending the whole summer there to document and try to make a movie. And I talked to the guys afterward. They were sitting on hills, all doing what's called a night watch, right there with their cameras to see if they could catch it, just like they had in 2007, they called it, to try to catch it on film in 2009. They spent 30 nights on hills. I talked to these guys, they were just totally devoted. And what did they see? The next morning at 4 a.m., right between them, some of them on top of that hill, the spectacular Quetzalcoatl headdress appeared. That's Silbury Hill. And the field coming up there, there's the road. The spectacular headdress appeared. You see the feathered headdress, 2 little eyes, a beard. Shit, what happened?
You sit on that.
Oh, 2 little eyes, a beard. And you can see various views of it. Let's zoom in a little bit. Those are people sitting in the middle over here. That's the people, I guess, people like to visit it, so they're sitting in the middle. And just look at this. There's never been I guess there have been people, look how big it is. And there were people there watching the whole time, and there was nobody there. They didn't hear or see anything. They didn't get anything on their cameras till 4 a.m. They got still shots at 4 a.m., but they didn't see anything happening. It just happened invisibly within about a few hundred meters of them. There were 4 people there. So it's magic. They appear by magic. There's no orbs nor anything. They didn't see anything. It's just amazing, isn't it? Now, what does this mean? Why would they draw this? And here's another thing. Not only was it there, but it lined up with Silbury Hill exactly. So it's aligned exactly like with the hill. In other words, this gentleman with the feathered headdress is coming to the hill. Okay? He's coming. This gentleman, this is his symbol, this ET gentleman, is coming to the hill. It won't be long. I told you don't have to wait that long. And there are Mayan symbols around the outside, so we know who it is. It's the Mayan Quetzalcoatl, the great leader of the Mayans, who lived on Earth a long time ago, supposedly.
He did say he was coming back, didn't he?
Said he's coming back. 2012, he hasn't come back. And here's what it is. The Quetzalcoatl headdress, it looks like an Aztec headdress, and pictures of the Quetzal bird, Q, and the Quetzal feathers, and his little eyes poking out, and his beard. The Mayans didn't have beards, so the European shows up there with beard, and they made a big thing out of it. His little beard, and this just looks like and you have various little Mayan symbols for time around the outside. I would go into it more, but we don't have time. So this is really quite amazing, isn't it? Quite amazing. So let's continue. We aren't even close to finished. We aren't even close. We're about a third of the way in, a quarter of the way in. Now, around that same time, another spectacular one appeared. 3 different phases, 1, 2, 3, not too far away. And it's easier just to show you. Part 1 appeared, I think, on June 20 near the White Horse, the Milk Hill White Horse. And here's this, looks like a sextant, an astronomical sextant with some planets coming off of it. And people were a bit excited. I think that was June 20. And then over the next 2, then it appeared near a busy road, 3 more sections. First it was like a little one, and then it got bigger, and then it got really big, and now it's 500 meters long. And look at this, 500 meters. And there's a road nearby, nobody saw anything. And we're going to look at this a little bit more, although I'm taking time, okay? And it looks like planets going around through the sky, and someone using a sextant, an astronomical sextant, to look at the sky and measure planets. And I won't get into it. Now, Stuart Dyke, one of the friends of Mark Fussell, great photographer, he took these films from an angle, and you can see it took 4 of his films, and there's a person. Look at these. There's nobody could even walk into these things. There's nowhere access for walking in. They're all perfectly shaped. There's the white horse. Look at these things, and there's no trace anybody's walked anywhere. It's amazing, isn't it? And 500 meters, and nobody saw anything in the middle of the night.
Lines going through the field, is that where the farmers sprayed the crops?
That's right. Where the lines going through the field is where the tractors run through to process the crops. They're not in all fields, but they're in most of them. They're called tram lines.
Yeah, where they spray, usually spray them.
Well, the tractor can run through without running over grass. That way, when they drive through to spray, that way the tractor can actually not run over. There's no use planting that they want to drive through. Not all fields have them, but these do.
No, they don't, no.
This is Mr. Carson's field, Tim Carson. So it's quite amazing. Now, just 8 years went by, and then I was showing these to some fellows in Redfern, my friend Angelo. Angelo, if you're there, and I said, look at these are amazing. He said, I see something else, Horace, you haven't seen before. I said, what do you mean? He said, if you turn it this way, you can see a pattern, because nobody knew what these spots meant. So he showed me there was a pattern, and sure enough, if you turn it this way, you can see, can you see the bird and the serpent? I can actually under it too close. There's like a little serpent sticking its thing out in a bird. You can actually see the pattern of a bird serpent, which is the symbol for Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl is the bird serpent. And nobody saw that for 9 years. Can you see that now from back there?
Looks like the dog head, that head of that dog thing.
Yeah, whatever you can interpret. This is the closest I could get. I just tried to find a match to help people see it. And here it is, here's the serpent over here. And nobody saw that for 9 years. My friend Angelo was looking at it last winter, said, Horace, you've missed something. And I did miss something. So we know who made it, the bird serpent, the same guy who made the Quetzalcoatl thing. So we're starting to see a pattern. Now, let's skip ahead. We have to skip ahead. Comet Ison went around the sun 2013. Do you remember that? Famous comet? And images of that appeared. Now, these were quite remarkable because it looked like a bird going around the sun. This is actually the photograph in the sky, and this was the crop picture. And that's cool, but this was 3 years beforehand. So 3 years before it happened, they drew this. So we're looking at a time travel element. Would you agree to that? 3 years before, they drew the image before. So we're talking about time travel, not only aliens, but time travel. I mean, there's no possible other explanation for this. This was in Southfield. And here's another one which I visited nearby, and the same comet's flying. In the Mayan calendars, there's a bird. And I think the interpretation of this, and here's the comet flying in 2013. This was in 2009 again. So we're talking about time travel. So I think it means a comet will fly like a bird with wings as the old Mayan calendar ends and a new one begins. There's the bird with wings, there's the comet. And that's not that remarkable. And here's the real comet in 2013. This was 4 years before it happened. What do you think about that?
Just a coincidence.
Just a coincidence. Just a coincidence. Obviously, we're dealing with species that are capable of time travel. And this is just one. I could give you many examples.
Are there many comets that go around? What is so different about that comet?
That was a very, very rare comet, Ison. No comet. This was one of the most watched comets in all history, and no comet looks like a bird flying in the sun.
Right.
This is like it was a big astronomical event. It may have been more than a comet. It may have been something like a non-natural thing. There's speculation. After it went around the sun, all the images were censored. All the high-resolution images were censored. So we don't know whether it was a comet or some artificial spaceship or anything. They sold it as observatory, just nobody could see anything. They promised all these images. They said, oh, we pointed the telescope in the wrong place. Sorry, we missed all the images. So that's why we don't know why they gave this so much significance. I don't want to speculate further, but I think there's something very strange there. Now, let's get to 2016 and get through the thing. This was the next big one. In 2016, not far from Stonehenge, Anstey Farm Shop, this remarkable thing appeared. And no one knew what Mr. Gyro, a friend of mine, took the picture. And there's the farm shop, pick your own farm. Over here you can see the numbers 16 for 16, and this big thing appeared. Now what does it mean? Look at the detail of this. Look, just amazing, isn't it? Pretty good, isn't it? Yeah. Anybody think this was done with rope and boards?
Well, they're getting better.
Better. The rope and boards guy's getting better. And actually, it's very subtle. Actually, you could decode it. When you figured out what the letters mean, I was one of the people to do this. It meant these letters, alien-looking letters, code for mothership. I won't explain how we do it because I don't have time. All these alien-looking letters mean mothership, mothership. And around a flower of life. And so they're bringing us the flower of life. When they come in their mothership, they're bringing us the flower of life. And this is called nonverbal communication. If you, yeah?
So I saw this crop circle on the internet before, and apparently they were saying that this logo, it looks very almost identical to the logo of a company that makes bombs.
That's right.
Yes.
It does.
Yes.
I'll come to that in a second. So actually what happened was, do I have time? What happened was, when it first appeared, nobody knew what it was. And there's a very small company, like 3 people in Washington State, called Mothership Glass. And like the best glass blowing in America. And it looks sort of like their logo, okay? Except for not for these letters. So where do these letters, the central part. So where do the letters come from? It turns out that about a month earlier, these letters were put on very, very small print so no one could see them on the Mothership Glass Facebook page. Like, it was so small nobody could notice it till in retrospect. And then we asked the fellow and they're not known anywhere else, where did it come from? He wouldn't even tell any of his family or anything. So whatever the source of this alphabet is, nobody knows. He refuses to divulge it. No one was seen there. It's a complete mystery. No one was seen there. Obviously, whoever the crop artists are, they could have just gotten the image off the internet. They didn't have to go to the guy. No fakers were seen there making it. They estimate this thing, if there had been fakers there, this is a pick your own farm, a minimum of 3 days for a team of 12 people to make this. Minimum of 3 days. Who's my friend who's expert crop circle maker. And no one saw anything. There were people there picking vegetables the whole time. And the whole time this was going on, there were people walking their dogs, walking their cattle. So it's true, that's where it comes from, but that doesn't mean that company made it. So what it means is they can access our internet. Or maybe this guy in Washington with the bongs has some sort of alien connection we don't know about. That's certainly a possibility. So it's an unsolved mystery at this point, I would tell you. Are you happy with that? I don't know where, there's no indication it was an advertising or anything. There is a relation, of course. It was of course I did this, so. You happy? I could do it more, but I'm running out of time. And here's how close to the farm shop it was. And they're right there and they didn't see anything. And here are people picking the vegetables. And there was a big thing behind me on my song about this 10-part article. It's right here. And no one saw anything. So as I said, fakers would have taken a minimum of 3 days, 12 people. And the people, and there was no half-formed crop circle. They asked my friend asked the farm. It just was there. It was there or not there. Instantly, it wasn't delayed over 3 days or anything. So it's a real mystery. That was the last big mystery. Okay, now let's quickly go through the crop circles from 2017. This was my 8th trip to Southern England to see them in person. We've gone up to 2016. Now we're going to talk about the new ones in 2017 because nobody really feels like talking about something that happened 20 years ago, do they? We're coming to what's happening now. We're moving to the future. So the first one really interesting was near the Share Hill White Horse, which was not easy to get to. They saw a pendulum clock is ticking until a man on a white horse rides into land on Earth. So it's not long now. Now let's look at the pendulum clock. They drew a pendulum, this is Lucy's photo. They drew a pendulum clock ticking here with a moon in it. There's the white horse up here. It's ticking. Tick-tock if you look at it carefully. And here's another one. How long until we see a man on a white horse ride into Earth? This is the metaphor, the rider of the white horse of the apocalypse. You could use Clint Eastwood if you want. The man on the white horse rides in to save the planet. This is an artistic metaphor. And here's the pendulum clock with the moon on it. and it's offset a certain way. You can see this thing here. Anyway, there's a pendulum going. I was there, and it points just at the nose of the white horse. I was there on that hill last year, standing right there. Tick tock, tick tock. Not very long. The clock is ticking until the man in the white horse rides to earth. Now you could have a religious interpretation. The first horseman of the apocalypse is a white horse. Or you can have various other interpretations. But in other words, it's not long until we have an ET contact. The mothership, the white horse, okay? This is a very common theme, the white horse. You happy with that metaphor? White horse is a symbol. Go ahead.
Can I ask, how did they make it white?
Oh, they made that, their local people made that a long time ago by chalk. They're like five. There are white horses all over southern England, and crop circles often point to them. Like it's very common. 50 crop pickers have pointed at these white horses all over southern England. There's a few. That was a thing. The next really interesting one was in Cerney Abbas. A friend of mine's there. The Lady of Fatima, or the Resurrected Christ. They drew this beautiful religious-looking theme, a radiant symbol coming out, and it was flawless. I don't know if I showed the detail. The flawless, an image like a keyhole, radiating light. And this could be, for example, it could be Christ, or actually it was incidentally 100 years exactly after the Fatima. Do you know the Fatima UFO events? Exactly 100 years later, where this woman appeared, I'm from heaven, I will not harm you. This thing appeared almost exactly 100 years later in May of 2017. So this is one interpretation. It's definitely a religious, spiritual symbol. You can see the white light coming from the middle. And the farmer said it was flawless. The farmer said the thing was completely flawless. There was no, you can see no roping boards, no anything. And a friend of mine investigated that there. I won't say it. Now we'll continue. A few weeks later, last year, there was the Tree of Life, the Jewish Tree of Life. This was a very famous one on the BBC News. And this is out of the Kabbalah, the sacred geometry. They drew this, the Tree of Life, and this is a sketch by Nayako Nakar. Beautiful thing. So you're seeing sacred geometry. It's amazing art, isn't it? I'm going a little quick because you want us just a lot of photos. We can come back. And here's, being a scientist, I decoded it analytically. And it's the tree, there's three geometries, the isocursal hexagram, the Tree of Life, and a triangle superimposed on one another. This is actually my geometrical analysis if you're not artistic, if you want to be more logically like Spock or Tuvok. And it was very famous. Thousands of people, some people slept in it for days. Very famous there, okay? Now at Clay Hill, I went to this one in person, and it symbolizes descent from sky to earth at a pyramid. And there's a similar thing like in Chichen Itza, Mexico, where the Quetzalcoatl built this big pyramid and the serpent comes down. Have you ever seen that? The serpent comes down from sky to earth and people go watch it every year. Like Quetzalcoatl returning to earth. And here it is, I was there. This was Hugh Newman took this photo. There's Clay Hill, I walked around up there, came in through that way. And there's Clay Hill right here, which is near Warminster. And I came into the little fence there, walked down here, come that way. And there's this magnificent thing here, right below it. Little serpent eyes around the outside, the Metatron's cube in the middle. This thing is about 200 meters wide or something. Let's go to a little closer view. A special version of Metatron's cube. And we have this magnificent photo. I forgot who, I think it's Hugh's photos. Just magnificent. I was in it. I've got all the ground photos. I just don't have time to show them. And I superimposed this thing, and obviously that's just superimposed it just to get a diagram that height. So you can see how the Metatron's cube superimposes from sacred geometry. Beautiful, isn't it? Does everybody think that's beautiful? Yes. I was there in person with my wife. I have the ground photos. Everybody it was ecstatic. You know, I went there last year in about an hour's drive from Avery. Now, in August last year with the Rollright stones about halfway to Oxford, there was going to be a solar eclipse on August 21st, and there were going to be 4 bright planets around it. And 2 weeks later, after the crop picture appeared, so that's what they seem to have drawn. This was a photo by Lucy, and here you see in the center there's an image of a solar eclipse, these things, and there's little 52 of these, like 1 year, like a year. 52 little patches, and there are 4 bright stars around it. I think there were 4 bright planets around the eclipse a few weeks later. It's an astronomical event. And look at the detail in this. This was by Frank Lohmann. Look, here's the eclipse, the little thing in the center, and look at the detail. I walked around there, and I've got a video on YouTube, and I couldn't count how many there were. Because it's sort of hard, isn't it? There are 52, it turns out, like for 52 weeks or something like that. And it's amazing when I walked through, it was on the side of a hill, there was nobody there. There was absolutely nobody, nobody anywhere near this thing when it appeared. So we had to drive about 2 or 3 hours to get there. And nearby was something called the Rollright stones. And these stones are used for eclipse prediction in the old days, like at Stonehenge. So they drew this next to an old megalithic site which is used to predict eclipses. Does this all make sense to you? Am I communicating well? Everybody happy so far? Okay, it's just amazing. I have to go through because I want you to see as many as I can. Now, nothing happened. Then a few days later, we got news of a new small crop picture near Stratford upon Avon. It was a 4-hour drive. And I had a big dog in the back with me, sitting there with his tongue out the whole time, up and down these roads. And it was a small one. It was amazing when we got there. You'll see in just a second. It looks like a letter Q. It also looks like a star trail from the Pleiades. It also looks like an act of fertilization. I took contributions from everybody on Facebook as to what it might mean. And if somebody suggests something, I'll make a slide. It's not just my interpretation. Other people suggest things. And here's what it was. It looks like a letter Q. Again, for our friend Quetzalcoatl, Q. And here it looks like a letter Q. And there's sunlight radiating out. Let's look in detail what it looks like. This was a photo by Lucy Pringle. She flew over. Look at all the amazing detail. It's even more amazing when you walk through it. Does anybody think this was made with rope and boards? When you walk through it, it's even more amazing. I've got all the ground photos. I just didn't want to show them. I think there's 17 rays for the year 2017. It's very similar to the Quetzalcoatl headdress we saw earlier. And there's several interpretations possible. One is, and there was a tree nearby. So what I did is I walked over here and I came to the tree, and I didn't want to walk through this because no one had ever been there. No one had walked through there, obviously. So I walked down this thing and came in sideways. That might have been me there. There was a hole there because you don't want to walk through here. It would disturb the crop because no one had ever walked there. There were 13 of these. And it was August 8th. The eclipse would be 13 days later on the 21st. So you see why they're 13. And I knew that immediately. And it looks like, and here's a tree of life, sort of, like we showed the tree of life. And it looks a lot like the star trail in the Pleiades coming off Alcyone, doesn't it? So I went back the next day and made this. This was last year. It looks like the Pleiadians are come. Q, the Pleiadian is coming. My interpretation would be Q, the Pleiadian is coming, and he's bringing us the tree of life, a green tree, some fertilization. And the other next thing of interpretation, that's symbolic, of course. The next thing was my friend from the Netherlands. They like sex there. She said, "No, that's not it at all. It looks more like an egg, a sperm fertilizing an egg." I said, "Well, you got a point there, don't you?" So I had to make a slide. I had to make a slide. They're very sexually liberal in the Netherlands. I didn't even think about it. They've got it on the mind more than me. So I had to make a slide that this looks like a sperm fertilizing an egg, doesn't it? And there's the egg, and there's the sperm coming in. You have to admit that's a pretty good interpretation, isn't it?
It is.
So the thing is, when they come, it will be an act of fertilization for planet Earth. Do you see the metaphor they're trying to explain? An act of, yeah, an upgrade. The ET contact by this race will be an act of fertilization by planet Earth. It's an artistic metaphor. Is everybody happy with that? People can disagree if you want quickly. And
the sun then provides the energy for the growth.
Yeah, growth, a radiant growth. And it's an artistic thing. It's not really a message, but it's an art form expressing a message. You look at it and you think, that makes me think of this. And there's no language required. You see it? And you can interpret it if you're Chinese. You can interpret it if you're Japanese. You don't need there's no letters. So it's some advantage of alien. Why should they have to talk English alien? They can show pictures and the whole earth understands. There's no reason they have to show Australian English, is there? And so you can see the beautiful detail in that, can't you? Thanks to my photographer friend in the Netherlands, if she sees this, okay? She will.
Sorry, can I just, it looks like a flagella.
Yeah, sperm has a flagella on it, that's right. The tail of a sperm is a flagella. We don't look at our sperm microscopically, but that's what it looks like under a microscope. It doesn't look that way when we see it, but anyway. So now the most amazing thing was, then we thought it was over. Then this is 2017, last year. This was a worldwide news. The 17th, another one appeared near Southend Airport in Essex, near London, Southend Airport. As another letter Q, and it was a radio broadcast antenna. Is the ET space traveler Quetzalcoatl, who drew the headdress in 2009, now going to broadcast to us in some way? Now this is amazing. It was a few days for anybody found this. And here was the picture when they got it. And here's the picture of the same little moon symbol. And it's like there was actually a radio antenna nearby he was copying. Like a broadcast was just nearby in the field. And here's that letter Q again. And this is the little signature of Quetzalcoatl. Now the reason we know that's the signature of Quetzalcoatl with a Q is because it's appeared so many times over the year. Here's the headdress. This was 1998, the Ankh and the Q. This was 2011. This was 1999 and a few others I didn't put on the slide. So this is the signature of Quetzalcoatl, whoever he might be. Q and his signature, he signs his name in two ways. His tag. The artist signs his work. So we've seen a lot of references to this Q fellow. Okay, I mean just a lot. And he has his two ways of signing the thing. We don't know that much more about him. Pleiades, you know. And now what was nearby, the reason he drew it, sorry I should have said this earlier, when I looked to see where it was drawn, there was a real radio antenna looks just like it behind it in the field over here. And I put a box around it and it pointed toward it. So there's no doubt that's what the reason was for drawing it. And this was about next field, and somewhere I found that photo, enlarged it, and you see all these complex symbols, and there was the antenna nearby which it pointed to. And the other direction, where did it point? Oh, sorry, one more slide. This actually also looks, just there's a possible interpretation, like a reed boat. This is at Chatswood in Sydney, visiting Enki. So it's broadcasting. This is the crop circle. It looks like a broadcast tower. It also, if you turn it on its side, another direction, it sort of looks like a reed boat. This was called visiting Enki. So there are a couple of different ways you can interpret this. You can interpret it like a broadcast tower or like a reed boat. I just put it in so there's not just one interpretation. You look at it from all aspects. And in the other direction, it pointed at the control tower of Southend Airport. And this actually looks a bit like a bird here, doesn't it? You know, that's non-specific damage. So it's really quite amazing, isn't it? This made worldwide news. Did aliens do this? Did they, you know? And yes, I think yes, aliens did do this. So I don't think any other possibilities possible here.
What about the symbols inside the circle on the top?
I would like to tell you about it, but I can't in the short time. I've studied it quite a lot. It is an interesting subject, a very interesting subject. All those symbols. Very interesting subject. But I don't want to come back to it because I've got a room only for a little while. Thank you very much. So let's summarize part one and we'll have a break. We're on time. Many crop pictures show complex weaves which human fakers have never been able to reproduce under conditions of darkness and limited periods of time. And here's some. I walked into this one in Silbury Hill in daylight, 2009, August 3rd. I'd just come from Australia with my wife. I was at the pub. My friend Catherine, we were drinking a beer. She was having a tea. Come on, there's a new one. So we rushed out, bribed the farmer to get in, about 100 pounds. Get over there, and this amazing thing awaited us. And you can see all these little standing things around. Look at all those. There were standing tufts everywhere. You can see all this weaving here. Look at all those standing tufts. There's Silbury Hill. Look at this weaving. And it wasn't there earlier. No one saw it till about 11 a.m. or 12 a.m. And I photographed that one, I think, standing right over it. And my wife took that one. And there's a smiling face pointing right up at me. I walked in the ground. There's a smiley face pointing right up at me. So you walk out in the field, and there it is. You look down the ground, this big thing. So it was quite amazing. You don't forget that very easily. That was 2009. Here's another one by Russell Stannard, who gave me a ride home last year when the car broke down. Thank you, Russell. And I went to a trivia night with him. And this looks amazing. In 2009, here's a huge basket weave. I mean, look at the scape of that. So if anybody says rope and boards, I mean, just it's just like saying, a friend of mine said, you know, you just feed your dog. The debunker says, no, you never fed your dog. But you know you fed the dog. So they're trying to mess with your heads. So when you see, they're trying to mess with your heads, the newspaper people, the debunkers. So when you see this, there's a 0.0000% chance that this was made with rope and boards. That was only part of it. It was bigger. So when you see that, you can just anchor on that and think, it's even better, in close-up it's even better. You think, no, they're just lying to me, okay? Or does anybody really object to me saying so strongly that? I mean, it's just scientific evidence. Scientific evidence. You know, nobody went out with a board and did this. Now, sociology. What happens when you visit Wiltshire to see the crop pictures? There's an annual meeting every year to discuss crop pictures at a place out in barns like this. And my friend Roland organizes it from the Holland and from the Netherlands. It attracts hundreds of interested people from around the world. This was in 2017. And you see there's quite a lot of people there. I was there somewhere. And this is Paul, Professor Paul, American professor, my friend. There are a lot of people here I can't really see from this angle. And all the really crop people, they gather here and they hear talks once a year. All professional people. These are not new age crazy people. These are professionals, professors, whatever. These are professional people. And so all these professional people believe in crop circles. So it's not, what they tell you is not true. It's not true at all. They all come here, they all fly in from around, hundreds of them, okay? Michael Glickman. Now Michael Glickman, in my view, rivals Stephen Hawking. Now you can laugh at me, but he's one of Britain's great scientists. He has MS. Said you met Michael. And he's written a book called The Bones of God, which we have a copy here. And I'm a second generation researcher. He's a first generation. This phenomenon has gone on for so long that we had several generations of researchers. So he's actually got MS now and he's okay, but I don't think he can walk. So I'm sort of second generation. I'm following in his footsteps. And at this thing, I've got a video online. I videotaped him. Crop circles might be the greatest phenomenon which our planet has received for millennia. And what do the English people do? Do they take this man seriously? Their own man. They're talking about their own scientist. We're not talking about an Australian. We have a great English scientist here, controversial perhaps, but still a great English scientist, rivaling Hawking. And I'd say he's done more than Stephen Hawking in some ways. Hawking, of course, in astrophysics. Michael's an engineer. And did they pay any attention to him? That for that reason, I will repeat, the English people in some ways are not capable of independent thought. They follow groupthink. And ipso facto, why don't you read his book? They're not capable of doing it. You go there and they think, I don't know if Australians or French would do this, but anyway, you can see it's obvious. This man should be honored across the whole country. He's MS, okay? Is that okay? Do you mind me saying that strongly? Okay, good, okay.
Don't hold back on us.
Now, there's also an exhibit there in Wiltshire. Monique Klinkenberg runs a crop circle exhibit. Andreas Müller, a German scientist, and I photographed this. This is one of the most famous things they had made at the exhibit. You go there and there's a beautiful bronze thing of Mill Hill hanging there. So I took the photo. Beautiful bronze thing. And here's Andreas, German scientist, and Monique. And this is one of the other ones we saw, this DNA crop picture. I don't know if you've seen it. This was last year, their poster. And you can actually Google to see more of it. Horace Drew, Darren Brody crop circles. There's a YouTube video I've got posted showing more of it. I don't have time here. And here's a video, so a photo I took. They were having nice tea there. Here's Andreas and Monique, and Andreas' wife and kids. Nice Dutch man, I'm sorry I forgot his name. And people all enjoying themselves, and pictures of crop pictures everywhere, and it's free. Truth is free. If someone, you had to pay for the drinks. You come in here, food, in the room, but otherwise truth is free. Let it be emphasized, as Cheryl, I flew up here this morning from Sydney. I'm paying for all my own airfare. I'm paying for all my own room. I'm not taking any travel expenses, and I'm coming here specifically just to tell you the truth. There's no other agenda. And in general, truth is free. And people have to tell the truth from their own heart. If someone's selling you something, oh, here's $20, will you believe me? So this is not you're not subscribing to anything, okay? And Monique also gives this for free. Her exhibit is free. Professional scientists could have gone there to learn something. And this is sort of what it's like visiting the exhibit there. And this is sort of like a play, it's still there. Now, another friend of mine is Paul Jacobs, and he collects money for charity, cancer charity, with James Hussey, a farmer at Hackpin Hill, and others. And people come to visit, and the money goes, they see the crop circle, and the money goes to a cancer charity in Swindon. He's collected about £20,000 for cancer therapy. And James Hussey's wife passed away sadly from cancer, like Mariana. So that's why these people are devoting their lives to that. Noble people. And here's Paul. I was there, and I had to get this photo. Here's Paul here, and sitting in the 2015, the Eagle at Ufcot, and these 4 English guys are listening to him intently, aren't they? So they regard him quite highly. So thank you, Paul Jacobs. And these guys, are obviously they've got open minds. Yes, crop circles are real. We're standing there, and Paul's there. Another very notable person. I'm just giving credit to everybody, show you what a big phenomenon it is.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah?
Do they mainly pick on barley crop or?
All kinds. Barley earlier in this. So you get oilseed rape in April, barley in May or June, and then wheat after that. And if after that it'll be corn. There's very few in corn. So usually oilseed rape early in the season, and then barley the next, and then wheat after that, either green or brown. So they'll choose whichever crop is ripe.
Okay. I know it's that just strictly barley.
This was brown.
Yeah.
I forgot which. There's so many crops I lose track. I was in this 3 or 4 times. I took all the ground photos here, but just 3 years ago. It's hard to remember.
Does the farmer actually lose produce from the damage or the flattened?
A little bit, but he can make it back up.
He can harvest
James
right
Hussey
there.
said he might lose about 50 pounds from a crop circle because he can harvest most of it up. So they lose a little bit. They send the newspaper, always losing tens of thousands of pounds. Well, that's not true. The leading farmer says he might lose about 50 pounds going at a pub meal. He might lose a pub meal or two from the crop circle.
If I want to eat wheat from a crop circle.
So they do lose a bit. Of course, I can see why they don't like the people. However,
Is the wheat out of the crop circle worth more than the wheat around it?
that's another marketing strategy that hasn't been used yet. Possibly that's a way to recover money quite a lot. If you'd like to suggest that to them, that'd be a good one. Crop circle wheat and triple the price.
Better than organic.
Yeah. So it is possible. They haven't done that yet, but it's possible. And I was there, and it was so beautiful. I just took this photo of what it looks like standing on Hackpin Hill and seeing all the clouds. I was there, seeing that when I walked back to the car park. I thought it captured the feeling of being there, of how beautiful it was sitting on the hill there. Now, we'll quickly get through. Why would any ET race wish to draw so many crop pictures of agricultural fields here on Earth? Might these images be part of a human communication project designed to open up a dialogue with interested people like yourselves on a world far away from themselves? So they're trying to gather your interest. Evidently they are. They're gathering your interest. You're the interested. You're the truth-seeking mutants in this room. The others are watching the footy, watching the Bachelorette, the news, the share market. You're interested in the important things. So that's what you're the people they're after. That's why I'm here. Now, it's actually, I realize it's analogous to what we do with dolphins. They love us like dolphins. We love the dolphins. We're not trying to. The dolphins, they want to communicate with dolphins. So they put a bubble generating thing at the bottom of the ground. See? The dolphins get curious, come investigating. Look at the bubbles. Pretty soon one dolphin, and then pretty soon there are a bunch of dolphins. They play with them. They do everything. Now, do you see any analogy between that and crop circles? Are they a human communication people? A lot of people don't analyze them like me. I'm an analyst. They just go there to socialize and sort of like dolphins. Here's a lady here. Here's people having a picnic here with their mobile phones or food, and people having things here. So for a lot of people, it's a sociological meeting place, just like the dolphins see the bubbles.
Are there increased energy emissions from the crop circle?
Well, not to me, but it depends on the person. This person's taking a photograph. This one here, I forgot which one that is. People sitting there, look at this, they form a spiritual group. I think that's Lucy Pringle, one of those. And And these people definitely feel an energy. I may not, but that's not my decision, my criticism, my judgment of them. They feel an energy. It's important to them. So they have an entirely different way of interpreting it other than me. I'm the analyst, the scientist, and they're the spiritual people. So both avenues are open. All paths are open. And that's how it should be, isn't it? So you don't have to be a scientist. You can do both. So people, from whichever perspective you want to do, that's perfectly acceptable. I'm sure the makers intend it to be that way. I just want to give you an idea of what it's like and give a background.
Is it only in England?
No, it's worldwide.
The following year, is there any trace of the previous year?
Yes, often there is. They're called ghosts.
Yeah.
And I just don't have time to show them. Yes. There was a famous one at Clay Hill in April. They're ghosts because of what happens is when the crop circle radiation hits the ground, the crops, there's nitrogen fixing bacteria in the soil, and it sterilizes them like the soil at your gardening center. So the next year, when the plants grow up, the seeds can't germinate where there are no bacteria. You have to have nitrogen fixing bacteria in the soil for seeds to germinate. So the bacteria have to repopulate those regions for it to grow. So typically for 1 year, you'll still see the pattern. The new seeds won't propagate. This is exactly because it was done with, just like if you go to the gardening center, the soil you buy has been microwave sterilized. So that's what you see. Same thing. Some sort of energy sterilizes the soil under the crop where it's flattened.
Are they in sand and snow? I think I've seen.
There have been some in sand and snow. I'm not talking about them here because we have so many in grass. And I don't really know much about the ones. They're just like, and it's worldwide. It's not just England. It's just all through Europe especially, mainly in England and Europe, but also it's appeared worldwide at times. One in Australia. Now, also people go there, this is Gary's photo. People go there to become more spiritual and less materialistic. And this is Gary's great photo of some Indian guru going to one. That really catches the feeling of being out in the field and meditating. I think it sort of catches it, doesn't it? So you see a lot of people there doing that, which is perfectly acceptable. And here's one, I thought you'd like it for a spirit. Do you know what the chakras of the human body are? These are the 7 chakras. So the chakras are real to them, whether they're real to earth scientists or not. Maybe the geochemists here don't believe in chakras. Maybe the molecular biologists don't believe in chakras, but the ETs believe in chakras. So these are the 7 chakras of the body. The crown chakra, crown, and all these others. The heart chakra. And people, even kids are meditating. This is a very 2004 near a white horse. It also pointed toward a white horse, a different one. The heart chakra. So this is a very, very healthy spiritual influence on the human race. Okay? And they also teach us how to solve puzzles. Now this is where I come in. These are all crop circle puzzles. They may be incomprehensible to you, but I know what they all mean. That's melatonin, for example, and that's pi. This is Euler's identity. This is a 5-dimensional cube. I'm just going to show you a couple of them, okay? Just to give you an idea of what intellectual puzzles, like Sudoku puzzles, they do to stimulate us. This was a very famous one, the first 10 digits of pi in 2008. And you start here, and you go around. Each digit is how long you go around. So that's 3, and there's a decimal point, and 1's a bit shorter. Then you go to 4, a bit longer, and the 1's short again. Then 5's really a bit more. And then 9's a long way around. I'm getting lost. And then 2, anyway, it works out. And you go around eventually to 654. This was made worldwide news, and this was purely alien made. No mathematician on earth had ever done this before. This is called a rotary encoder. No mathematician on earth had ever done it before. It made worldwide news. I was the second person to do that. My first person was a gentleman in Mike Reed in North Carolina who's passed away suddenly. Here's another nice one, the golden ratio. Who knows what the golden ratio is? So the golden ratio in architecture and mathematics, they drew it next to the golden heart, tree-shaped planet of trees, golden ratio. Each ray, they've divided so you can count. The little lines let you count. So you go 1.61. If you count out, it's really, I'm getting dizzy doing it, okay? But if you look at that diagram and count out 0.3399, and you count the golden ratio just like pi. This is called the golden spiral, which is the trees look like that. So this, again, no mathematician. This is quite amazing, isn't it? So they're giving us things.
You need
Now,
a lot of ropes to do that one.
a lot of ropes to do that one. Now, as a DNA scientist, they're very evolved technologically. They even know more. They even put the draw picture of DNA. This was in DNA in 1996. I'm a DNA person. This is DNA. It's correctly drawn. Just take my word for it. Steve Alexander. And now this amazing thing here was curved DNA. And this is how I got into it. I was actually, this is called the nucleosome core particle. And I was at a conference in Cambridge with this on my thing when the crop picture appeared nearby. I was in Cambridge with this same slide on the show, engineering department, Trumpington Street, and this appeared. And that's how I got into crop circles, because this is so amazing. 1,296 square pixels, cut by the farmer, no trace of human anything. It's so amazing that I couldn't, and they're all squares. There's no rope and boards, there's no circles. 1,296 squares laid out on a curved grid, and this is what it represents biologically. That's called the quantum unit of chromosomes, the nucleosome core particle. And I was just with the woman who crystallized this in Sydney for a meeting. I don't want to mention her name. She's a leading scientist in Singapore, and she just was staying in our house last week, and she grew the crystals of this before, and so she knows about it, but I don't want to say hello up there. Top scientist in Singapore. So you agree this is not possible for humans to do. Okay? It's one of the most amazing ones. Now, and this was my own personal work, so you know what I'm talking about. I did the first X-ray structures of DNA, and these are some of my textbooks, just to show you I'm not some charlatan. Of course I know what it is. Here's Horace Drew here, you know, 4 textbooks. And that's actually the image of the thing. I knew the guy who did that a long time ago. Now, what kind of this is a UFO group. What kind of UFOs do we see near crop pictures? Are they big ones? No. We see a lot of little ones though. And they look like the Foo Fighters during World War II. So the Foo Fighters around the plains look like that. And here's some real crop circles, like cricket balls. And my friend, another friend of mine, who lives in Bournemouth, I think now, took this photo right out of her phone over a crop picture and sent it to me with metadata. As soon as she got it, there's no manipulation. So these are real photos of like cricket ball stripes, UFOs, and they look like the ones, so they've probably been watching us since World War II. However, this year I learned out the first French, let's be open-minded, the very first crop picture indicated they were being made by what we called angels. And this was censored. I didn't learn about it until 1994, and the military went in. I didn't learn about this crop picture until this year because it was hidden by the newspapers in France. In August last year, they saw some UFOs. Now this big crop picture appears. The military police are leading the investigation. Now this is the crop picture, and pretty obvious how to interpret it. It looks like an angel blowing the horn down on the earth. So this was an alien-made crop picture, and you can get other interpretations as you want. However, I think it certainly would be consistent with an alien blowing a horn down on the earth as a metaphor. So that's another option, maybe angels or extraterrestrials. We're going to leave that one in there, okay? You leave that one in there? What we call angels or extraterrestrials. I didn't know about that. It was the very first crop picture ever in France. So, despite all of this magnificent stuff, what do the British people think about it? I've been criticized for saying this, but I'm just going to show it. They just remain, when you go over there, it's very disappointing. There's some people like you, but most of them just remain oblivious to it all or watch TV or go on their mobile phones. And here it is. This is what they do. They don't like me saying that, but I mean, you have to recognize this is what they do. The old ones, young ones. Of course, there are people like you, some of them, who aren't that way, but there are a lot of them just are sitting there just oblivious. So that's why you don't hear about it in the news and things. They're just mentally oblivious to this whole big thing, which many people are studying. Okay, that's the end of part 1. We're on time. As I said, this talk has been given in the honor of Mariana Flynn, a wonderful woman at UFO Research, a friend of mine who passed away recently from cancer quite unexpectedly. And please think about Mariana and pray for her in your prayers. We had a session, a prayer, sort of a remembrance of her last week. She passed away quite suddenly and unexpectedly. Now in part 2, we'll take a break. We'll show some of the best crop pictures from 2018 that just appeared, and we'll explain why they're now forbidden knowledge. Crop circles of forbidden knowledge. We'll look at that in part 2. Everybody take a rest. Now we're going to come in the year 2018 in the second part, and the second half of this, we're going to show what are called puzzles. They give puzzles to tell us when they might come down and land on Earth. They're planning to come down and land on Earth. Now I've known since 2012 that a spaceship is headed this way, crop circles then, and they left the Pleiades or somewhere about 2012 and they're in transit. I've known this. There were crop pictures in Italy, spectacular ones. And so I don't know how long it takes to get here or how in their real time, but I know there's some sort of ship headed our way. So they're going to land at some point. Now I'm not, and it can't be that far off. It'll be in the next decade. I think it'll be 2021, but I'm not sure. So we're going to look at the 2018 crop pictures, which discuss this a lot, and we're going to sort of look at the puzzles, which sort of say when they're going to land and sort of make a guess. We're not going to be sure, but that's what we're going to do now, okay? Be very interesting, wouldn't it? Go up and shake the hand of Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah.
Hello, Quetzal, how you doing? Hey. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? Have a drink with him, have a drink. I drink. So that's what we're going to do here, and then we'll take questions afterward. I just want to get through because we don't have that long for the room. So now in 2018, these are some of the best crop pictures. There were 30 of them in 2018. What are they trying to tell us? You don't have to look at them. These are just some of the ones we're going to be looking at. These amazing things. Now here are all of them. I made this slide because I was getting a bit frustrated with the debunkers. These are all of the major ones in graphic form from the summer of 2018. You see not all of them, but sort of like all I could fit on the slide. And I put this thing here. All these crop pictures appeared in the summer of 18, but nobody saw anything. That's a famous meme. Nobody saw anything, and they didn't. All these crop pictures in the summer of 18, nobody saw anything. 12, 20, I don't know, 20. I put 20 of them, there were about 30. That's all I could fit on the slide. That's a lot, isn't it? So let's start looking at some of them. Now the four major reporting websites, Crop Circle Connector, my friend Mark, Temporary Temple, Steve and Karen Alexander, wonderful couple, Lucy Pringle, famous researcher, Paul Jacobs Core Group Initiative, just to give these people credit, the primary, the producing scientists who document this. Now the first one this year was quite interesting, May 8th near Willoughby Hedge. It was a water strider insect. It's this little insect on ponds that hops around from place to place. You've seen these little insects that walk across water on ponds? And here it was. And I made this slide. Quite clever, isn't it? So I got that and I had to find this picture to match. It's pretty cool, isn't it? And that's an oilseed rape. People were asking early in the season in May, that's yellow oilseed rape. You happy with that? Pretty elegant, isn't it? And when you look at it, again, I want to emphasize, you can see the flowers haven't been crushed at all. Plants still standing in the middle. No board went through here. You see? They're standing, look, do you see a board going through there anywhere? This is just a close-up. I didn't want to show too many because it takes too long. No board, the flowers haven't been touched. I mean, obviously, it hasn't been touched, has it? Nothing's been crushed. And interesting, it hops from place to place. This is where it was drawn near that tree. And here it is. It's hop, 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 walking along like that. And the metaphor here was that later in the season, this same image would appear in lots of crop pictures. Here's the water strider. Here's the water strider hopping. And all these crop pictures would look like the water strider, except it's hopping around to make different ones. 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for the whole season. It's sort of an organization, a general theme as an arithmetic series of the water strider hopping around and just making crop pictures everywhere. So that same graphical theme was repeated the whole season. Now this one's a bit more abstract. We'll come back to it. It's like a rotating Venus calendar. They like drawing these kinds of things. It's like Venus has a certain astronomical alignment every 8 years, 5 times, and it's sort of spinning like a propeller. V is for Venus, and like serpent numbers. This is sort of abstract, but it's very Mayan. And here's another one. You can see how that looks like. It looks like the number 2. We'll come back to that in a minute. Does that look like a 2 to you, like an abstract number 2? And the V, and we'll come back, that's hinting at something. We'll come back to that at the end of the seminar. And if you draw next to this Ouroboros shape in the landscape, like a little snake chasing its own tail, So there must be a message here, isn't there? So we'll come back to what that means at the end of the seminar. You can see they're trying to tell us something. It took me a little while to figure it out. It's a puzzle. This was a natural landscape feature they drew it next to. It just happens to be, they said, we'll draw a crop picture there. We'll come back to that. Then the next most famous one, in the middle of June near Hackpin Hill, a star through a wormhole. This was the crop picture. And this is another wormhole they'd drawn earlier. I superimposed them here. And interestingly, some people were visiting Paul Jacobs. He was camped out there with the first Hackpin crop picture, and they were looking at the stars all night out on the hill till 3 a.m. and they saw and heard nobody. And then no more than 100 meters from them, there were 3 or 4 people disappeared, and they found it first thing in the morning, the photos. Nobody saw or heard anything. There was 3 people sleeping right nearby, and they were up till 3 a.m. There was nobody there. And this thing appeared right next to them. It was quite exciting, like I'm sure they were listening to what these people were saying. One of them was talking about looking at the stars or things like that. So they were probably monitoring their conversations. And in the very center, they have this lovely lay where it's wrapped like a wormhole. I made that. Do you like that? That's pretty cool, isn't it? I think this is the fellow who took the photo. So they're looking at us through a wormhole, like a space-time wormhole. Now we've got some I've given you 3 big concepts really already. Looking at our popular entertainment, looking through a wormhole, and watching our satellites. So they're really watching everything we're doing. What you've got to get in your mind now is the ET crop artists, although we can't see them, are covertly watching everything we're doing. They're probably watching now. Nothing we're doing on Earth, they're monitoring us. Nothing escapes them right now. And although they're sort of doing it covertly by high tech, so we can't tell. And I'm sure of this, I'm not certain. Now another one, this is amusing, near Yarnbury Castle. Busy as a bee, the crop artist is busy as a bee. This is a joke. So they drew a little bee. You see how the crop's shaped like a bee? And it's like the little beehive, cubic geometry when you look in 3 dimensions. So it's like a little cubic beehive, and the bee, the shape of a little bee fluttering its wings. This was a bit to me, I'm sure this was meant to be humorous, a humorous art. And nearby, who did it? There it is. Is this an A or a B? Is it a C? A D? What letter is it? Q. Can you say that louder? Q. Q. So, it's a letter Q, and this is actually the crop picture superimposed. Actually, when you take that crop picture and superimpose on the water strata, the very first one, you get this. This is actually the superposition of the very first one we showed on that one. And the artist, Q, Quetzalcoatl. So he always has his way of sticking his little signature in there some way. So yeah, this is evidently meant to be humorous, as I said. This is not meant to be, here I am, you know? So we saw a lot of very interesting things here. This is sort of amazing when I don't know if you, anyway, this is it, this is what happened. Now, this is the most complex one of the year. July 7, look at this thing, I've colored it. Let's just I colored it because it makes it easier to see. All the places I've colored are empty spots, just to help visualize it in color, because otherwise there's too much there. You can see through it, I made it transparent. You can see the transparent parts. It's called a fractal recursive pentagram. Does anyone think this was made with rope and boards?
Well, they're getting better.
Getting better at it. There are people with them boards are getting better. They left the pub late at night and made quite a good one this time. They weren't too drunk.
Probably 2 of them. Is there any importance in 10 blue stars and 15 yellow?
I just found the best color scheme because I looked for all the different sizes of all the different objects, because the complexity of it so much is very hard to see visually in a quick slide without some coloring. I just colored it blue and yellow. There might be some significance, but I don't know. I'll show you a bit more. And here's another one. This is actually what a fractal recursive pentagram looks like. And this is the original crop picture without coloring. As I said, without coloring, it's nice, but it's sort of hard to see, isn't it? I mean, that's it. I've just colored it in because I said, well, it's really hard to see that. Let's put some shading in. The blue shapes are the big ones, big stars, little stars, and just color them in that way. White ones, blue ones. I tried, and this is actually what a fractal recursive pentagram should look like, according to fractal theory. But it was hard to see just the original picture, and it's just sort of intimidating, isn't it? So it's easier to have that thing here. Now this is interesting for the UFO people. In the Czech Republic, not in England, this amazing thing appeared, and this was it. And it showed the physics of UFO, it gives hints to how UFOs fly. And this was the crop picture, and I've made some schematics like little coils, and it reminds you of this thing here, the famous Adamski saucer. And there are hints to the physics of UFO propulsion. And this was a detail of it, this amazing thing. I don't know what that means, that's just, it's quite amazing graphics, isn't it? That was by Daniel Hosek, some Czechoslovakian fellow. Now this was more interesting, let's get more serious. Who knows who Dawn Sturgis was? Who died of the poisoning in England. The poor woman who died of chemical poisoning. Now she died the night of July 8th at 10 p.m. after being infected by some perfume about a couple weeks earlier. She wrote it in her hand. And that morning, before she died, nobody knew when she was going to die. That morning, a crop picture appeared not far from where she was, West Amesbury. And what did that crop picture show? That an alien-made crop picture the morning before she died. It showed a symbol for the organization for the prohibition of chemical weapons. And it was alien-made. I told you they know everything about us. You're going to get some thing here. And here it was. This is the OPCW symbol, West Amesbury. This is the crop picture, alien-made. There was no doubt. I looked at the ground. No human made this. This is the symbol of the OPCW. Here's Dawn, murder inquiry after Dawn Sturgis dies. And here's the cleanup. Now the significant point about this is, it was drawn on the morning of July 8th. She died at 10 p.m. on the evening of July 8th. Now no one could possibly know, a human, when she was going to die. Okay? They knew beforehand that morning what's going to happen, and they had planned the crop picture, they drew it, and this was not far away, like about from here to my hotel, not very far away. And here's Dawn, and here's someone made an image of her spirit coming up over it. The second interesting thing is, it looks just like the UFO one I showed earlier. Here she is. I put little angels, sort of an angelic thing. It looks like several other crop pictures. This was in the morning there. This was in England, another one earlier, very similar, about a month earlier. And this is the one in Czechoslovakia I just showed you. And when you superimpose them, they're clearly made by the same artist. So, for example, if you superimpose this and this, that one and that one, they're made on the same day, one in Czechoslovakia and one in England. Now, what's the chance hoaxers did this? It's just negligible. They look exactly the same three-pronged things. I've superimposed them over here. So it's very clear that this was that wasn't made. They knew what was going to happen before, and they made it. And it was in two different countries on the same day. So that if you have doubts, this is how they, sort of like magic, isn't it? Now, this also scientific suggestions. How can we improve Earth using technology? They tell us a better way to do solar energy. This beautiful thing was drawn next to a solar farm. That thing there, and here it is, and there's the solar farm with the yellow arrows. Here's the solar farm, and here's the crop picture. So that we have a technological suggestion how to do solar energy better from ETs. What are they telling us? It took me a little while, and here's a close-up. Beautiful crop picture, looks like a sunflower, and here's the solar farm. So what does the crop picture mean? It turned out there was a physics article telling us that we can use nanowires in graphene to get solar energy that way. And this was out of a physics paper, and this was the crop picture. So there's clearly a similarity there, okay? This is a technological, say, do it this way, get solar energy this way, don't use silicon, use graphene and use nanowires. So we have an instruction, yes, do it this way.
Instruction manual.
Instruction manual how to do physics, how to do solar energy better. Yeah, so now here, okay, that's fine. Just let it go, just let it go. Here, this was the door, very famous, the opening door. The door to knowledge is open. The door to the star knowledge is opening. The door to your heart is opening. An opening door. Here it is. They drew a picture of a door. It was next to the letter D in the landscape. Can you see the big letter D made of trees? The door. Obviously, you can't. That's not hard to interpret, was it? I looked at that, so I can interpret that one quite easily. Here's a big letter D, and next to it is the door. door. Kirsten Nash's door. And you can see it shaped quite nicely. That's pretty cool, isn't it? What does the door mean? Why are they telling us about door? Someone said, I think Leslie, who used to be here, she said, oh, it looks like my Outlook email thing. Are we getting an email from space? Is this an email from space? There's the crop picture, and here's her Outlook, Microsoft Outlook. So I made a slide for that. I thought it was a bit trivial, but it was interesting, wasn't it? Are we getting an email from space? Maybe you have mail. That's exactly right. This crop picture says you have mail. Is that pretty cool? Then maybe that's what they mean. I don't know. The other interesting thing was in the landscape. Can you see this now? In the landscape, it was drawn right here next to the letter D, and there's a little door here. And if you look, it looks like the image of a house. It looks like there's another little door right there as well. Can you see that? Perspective when you look at it like a house over there. Look at the picture of a house, and it looks like there's a door right in front of it. It depends on the angle you see on the screen. I can just see it right clearly on the computer screen. In the audience, you might not be able to see it depending on the angle you're at. I can just look right here and see it. So like the door to a house. Now, the next big one was Chesterton windmill, spinning windmill rotor. Look at this amazing thing. There's the windmill and the rotor spinning around. We'll come back to the details in a minute. It's quite remarkable, isn't it? I just want to get through these to show you the images. And we'll talk about detail later. And it was the day of the lunar eclipse. The longest lunar eclipse was going to happen, and we're waiting for it. Wait, the clock is ticking, the windmill's going around. You can see a little thing spinning there. And there was going to be a total lunar eclipse. And nearby was the symbol of the smiling face, and the symbol of Quetzalcoatl shows up again. He signed it again. This was in the crop somewhere else, and now he's signed as the same signature shows up again, the same one you saw earlier. The signature of Quetzalcoatl shows up there. He's got the smiling face over here. How you guys doing? This is clearly meant to be humorous, okay? You happy with that? Hey, smiling at us, how you doing? And here's a close-up just so you can see what it looks like, all the detail and all those little things. There's his little smiling face on the left, the two eyes and the mouth. The rotor is spinning clockwise, you can see in the center. There's lots of details in these I haven't shown. You can see all the details and that little thing over there. So that was quite a famous picture. So this is just in 1 year. We're just doing 2018. I haven't shown all of them. Now this is, you're going to get more remarkable. You're going to get where you can't believe this is really true. Now, you're not going to believe this is really a crop picture. It's so amazing. The next one shows like a calendar wheel or a gear. So look at that. That's all woven crop in various places. It's like a compound gear from your car. And all those things are woven and plated. Can you see that now? It's pretty remarkable, isn't it? Obviously, your initial instinct is to count how many there are. There are 15, 21, 29, incidentally. And there was a series, there's a mathematical thing I'm not going to talk about. So it's really quite remarkable. It's like a compound, what they call a compound gear or a calendar wheel. Now it sort of looks like a Mayan calendar wheel. There it is. This is a Mayan Aztec calendar wheel. Like that. Sort of looks like that. It also, and actually that's just, the number has 15, 21, 29. It was part of a mathematical series. And the various things like that. And you can imagine anybody doing that with rope and boards? Does anybody think that's possible? Raise your hand and show me how you do it. So I told you couldn't believe. This is actually beyond, almost beyond belief, isn't it? But that's what they're not showing you. They don't want you to see this. Forbidden knowledge. This is forbidden knowledge. And also you could see, this is what's called a compound gear. And that sort of looks like that as well. And that's like the calendar wheel. This is just to show you again. And there was more, I don't actually have time to what there's meaning of this because we have short time, but it has more meaning. It's actually a meaningful sort of thing. But it's very, very cool. I mean, you can't imagine anything really more interesting than that if you study it. You can study it more, and I have studied it a lot more. So the wheels are going around. It actually means wheels in the sky are going around. I want to continue. Now, This one's, now we're going to get to the time, when are they coming? We're getting tired of looking at pictures. When are they coming? I'm tired of looking at this. When are they coming down to Earth? So this one actually suggested, there was a solar eclipse on August. This one actually suggested there'd be just 7 more solar eclipses until they come. And I'll show you how they did it. How long is that? Not that long, is it? About 3 years? 7 eclipses? I'll show you how they did it. Is that interesting? Okay. Look at this amazing thing. Photo by Lucy. That's in Etchelhampton, not far from Devizes. This amazing thing, that's a person. August 10th. Photo by Lucy. There's a town of Mixon over there. And actually, I had to find out what it meant because it wasn't clear. There's something called spherical gears or planetary gears, and that's what we're looking at here. And these little things are turning, like the planets are like gears turning in the sky, and that's like 1, 2, 3 of these things. I've got a movie of this. It's sort of like gears, the planetary gears. I'll just continue on so you can see easily. It's like this. So the Earth and the Sun are all turning through space. It's sort of astronomical diagram. Earth and Sun, Earth blue and Sun yellow, are like 2 mechanical gears which are rotating the plane of the solar ecliptic. And that's actually the metaphor here. Because it's an eclipse. This is for an eclipse, they're marking it. A solar eclipse. So it's very cool. If you just look at that, you think, the mind behind that, what IQ do you think the crop artist has to have done a picture like this? 150? 180? Very high. It's very hard for me just to understand what he's done, but imagine thinking it for the first time. So we're talking about super intelligent extraterrestrials, okay? I mean, I agree but I feel bamboozled. It took me a long time to understand this. Now, the interesting thing is when you see where it was drawn, I try to figure out what would it meant. And finally, you can sort of see this like serpent or like serpent image. They drew it right there. Can you see the big number 7? Yep. 7 more eclipses. That's the symbolism, 7 eclipses. He's hiking toward Earth.
Where did the number 7 come from?
In the landscape. A big white shape of a 7.
Oh, right.
So what happens is sometimes the information's in the landscape and sometimes in the crop picture. They'll look at the landscape and they might see this image with a 7 and they'll draw a crop picture based on what they see in the landscape. It's not just the crop picture first. The landscape may come before the crop picture. So there's an interplay. So when you want to interpret it, you have to assemble the complete image. Did I explain that? What happened? What died here? Of the crop picture and landscape together is obviously they've chosen a very particular place for this. So they draw a specific location, so these 2 kinds of information overlap. So if you want to interpret it, you have to put it in the landscape and look at like a bigger picture. You have to look at the bigger picture and try to understand what was the crop artist trying to say. So he draws a picture of a day of a solar eclipse. When the solar eclipse was happening, he draws the planetary gears making the solar eclipse, and they have a big number 7. Did you follow that logic? A bit hard to follow, isn't it? Did you find it easy or hard to follow? Hard to follow. Okay, that's cool. But that's actually the way they communicate. It's very complex. You have to have they're very smart, these people, okay? Now, this one's getting easier. I'm just having to show you, I'm not actually choosing these, I'm just showing you what they've done. This one actually shows a space shuttle coming down, and there's a clock in its wheels. So evidently we're talking about not long. We have to read the clock. So I saw this one, obviously the shape of a space shuttle coming down a little road, and this is its tail wheel here, and this is its skid mark. This was only there for a couple weeks. And there's a little clock in its wheel coming down. You can see the shape of the space shuttle now, coming down in the landscape, and they drew it right here next to where the little tail would hit. That's pretty clever, isn't it? That's the meaning of the space shuttle's coming into land. Do you see that? It's a pretty impressive thing, isn't it? Draw it right there. And that's a skid mark. This is what the skid mark looks like, and I thought that was pretty cool. So I got this image of a space shuttle coming in. So now, we just have to read the clock. How do we read the clock? What time are they telling us? That's the trick. So here's another one. There's the crop picture. It's coming into land. This is the crop picture. And this is some wheels being used by NASA for their Mars probes. So evidently you're basing it on that image. They actually know what wheels NASA's using of the Mars probes, and they're basing it, that's how they base the crop picture on that image. They're following everything NASA is doing as well. So reading the clock. Here I put it in, I changed the color to make it easier to see. The wheel's turning that way, so the clock has to be turning that way. And you can actually read some numbers off the clock. I won't get into it, but you could interpret this as a date in 2021. I won't get into it, but you can. It looks like 2:30. Anyway, I'll come back to this more later. I'll have another section of the talk. You can try to read the clock. It's definitely a clock. We've got hour, minute, second, don't we? So there's definitely a clock. That's the puzzle is to read the clock, and then you know when the space shuttle is going to land. That's the definition of the puzzle. That's what they're asking us to do, quite obviously. It's a puzzle. It's like a Sudoku puzzle. We'll come back to it. Everybody agree that's a puzzle? I haven't solved it, but we know what the question they're asking. The clock tells us, and the wheel tells us when are they going to land. So, in summary, there are many hints of an ET landing soon. Many hints. So will an extraterrestrial spacecraft piloted by the crop artist land somewhere on Earth in the near future? This is what we're coming to now. And you see now why my Facebook page was shut down and banned. I can't go on Facebook again. The intel agents knocked me out. Now this is obviously that's very sensitive information. They don't want me spreading it. We'll see if it stays on YouTube. Do you think this is now why crop circles are being heavily censored? Because they don't want everybody to know that it's not that long till some ET spaceship comes and lands on Earth without a plausible explanation? That why I touched a sensitive subject? And I can't say exactly when, but it's not going to be that long. I'd be very surprised if in the 2020s they don't land. Maybe even early, maybe the early part of the 2020s, okay? These friendly people. These very friendly, there's nothing to be afraid of these people. Okay? So you can see that might be a sensitive government subject, wouldn't it? So, here it is. Here's from 2013. Here's just in case you don't believe me they're going to land, look at this. This was a famous crop picture in 2013. It clearly shows a triangular UFO. There it is, coming into land on a runway. There's no doubt this is a UFO flying into land, and you can even see the little image of a triangle right there. Flying into land. It looks like the letter Q, incidentally, the big thing here, big green Q. So, I think unambiguously, we would agree this is an alien spaceship coming into land, the image. Alien made, and at some point, they're going to come into land soon. Are you happy or not happy with that? Happy with that. So it's just a question of when. It's just a question. So they're hinting at it. They're not going to, they haven't informed me personally, but they're hinting that it's going to be soon, which is a very important result. And I'm showing you enough data so you can be sure that's the conclusion, although we may not know. They haven't written down and said it's going to be on a certain day, but we can know it'll be fairly soon. Like not 2030, not 2040. But it'll be, we'll see it. We'll all see it. And here it is. Just take a look at that before I go further. Everybody happy with that? Okay. They're coming down. So when are they coming down? Let's look at a few more crop pictures which give some indication of the exact time. Now you will have to realize is, this guy who makes this crop picture is a big joker. Like he's just like joking all the time. So the things you'll see in the next crop picture, maybe to put us at ease, are often meant to be intentionally humorous. So I'm going to show you something that's so intentionally humorous it's hard to believe, okay? But you'll see, I'll show you just 3 of them, okay? There are more. Let's look at this famous one. A Superman clock was drawn in crops 2015 to suggest it. In other words, he's comparing himself to Superman coming down to save the day. Superman saves the day. And here he is. Da-da-da. Can you see Superman? What are you guys looking at here? Oh, there he is. Over here, there's his mask, the head. I see you getting an angle. The tail, his Superman coming in to save the day. Coming in like that. There's a little head and his little face mask, and the crop picture's drawn right here. And there's his cape. It's just because you're looking at an angle on the screen, you can't see it. I was wondering, and there's a little cross. So when's he going to come? And they do the crop picture right here. There's his head and his cape and his tail. So when's he going to come? So they drew this crop picture here. So what we have to do is understand what that crop picture means. And he'll tell us when he's going to come. So here's another one. That actually describes Venus. It turns out Venus is an 8-year orbital cycle. This is the crop picture. This is the cycle of Venus. Every 8 years, Venus comes back to the same place. That's simple. I'll just show you. Skip that. Here it is. Here's a diagram. In 2015, Venus was here. In 2023, Venus, Earth and Venus are here, the same place. 2015, Venus is here. 2023 is here. And that's, you see, there's Venus and Earth. There's Venus and Earth, same place. 8 years later, and that's what all these 8 symbols mean. We're going around the outside. So we're talking about 8-year symbol of Venus, 8-year cycle of Venus. And inside there's 6 crescents. So why have they put 6? Maybe 6 out of the 8 years is all we need. And next to the crop picture, further the puzzle, they drew next to this little mound with dots. I just wanted to show real crop pictures alike. That little mound with dots also shows the 7-fold symmetries. That little thing I've drawn there. So this is what you have to do. And here it is again. Now if you remember our friend the clock, it's exactly the same as this mound. So the clock in August was the same as the mound in June. This is intentional. So this clock here we saw in August, which we were trying to read, the landing wheel, was based in something back in June. So now you talk about very high levels of intellect here, aren't you? You probably won't be able to follow in a seminar. I just want to show how intellectually complex it is. So you see these little dots around here, these things? 1, 2, 3, 2 like that. And there's the crop picture. So if we put them on top of one another, if we take the one from June and the one in August and combine them, we can read the clock. That's what the thing is. So we recombine, we have to superimpose 2 different crop pictures. That's the nature of the puzzle. We can't do it with one. We put 2 together like this, and then we can read the clock. It looks like about 2:30, doesn't it? So here's the 12. There's 2 hours, 30 minutes. And now each thing, there's 2 years, and we have another 30 minutes. It might be 3 years if each hour is 2 years. So that's the way it works. It's a puzzle. So this suggests about 3 years when you work out the mathematics. Now this is too hard for you to do. Here's our friend thing. But I wanted to show you the intellectual complexity of this is quite high, isn't it? This is how the crop circle puzzles work. High IQ puzzles. And there's one more funny one. This last one's very funny. You don't need any intellect. Now 2 hard puzzles solved. Let's try one more. This is how I feel. I'm the cat. I'm the cat. And this is what I do all summer. I'm the cat. So there's no doubt, but if you can't do it in a seminar, but if you sit down and study them a while, like a Sudoku puzzle, you can do it, okay? You have to study it for a few days and you can do this. This is the nature of crop circle puzzles, because we're dealing with extraterrestrials and they're smarter than us, or at least they're not dumb. So you would expect this, wouldn't you, from extraterrestrials? They were not going to say 2 + 2 = 4. They're going to have something big and complicated. And I'm the cat. So the last one's very funny. It's so funny I had to put it in. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, here it is. Watch this. Now come back to the Venus clock. Now the place they drew this in the landscape, I wondered what that thing was up there. That bird on the thing. It's a bird in a jet ski, almost. Here he is. Here's the bird. Can you see it? Right here, going along like a hovercraft. And they draw the crop picture right here like a little propeller. That crop picture is the propeller of the craft. Now you see why they drew it there, the little tail sticking up. Let's look at it more closely. I hope you can see it. There we go. Can you see it now? Can you see it? Everybody's struggling to see it. Can you see what I'm talking about? This is the little bird riding a hovercraft. Here's that thing here is this. That is this. Here's a little craft. He's driving a little bird like a kookaburra. And here he is. He's going along fast. And that thing here is the propeller of the boat. So it's like a propeller. He's flying along fast to Earth. He's coming in his hovercraft. Can you see that? It's a bit abstract. But that's why they drew it there. There's a landscape feature that looks like a bird on a hovercraft. You have to admit that's very humorous. You have to chuckle, don't you? I had to show you something heavier than just pictures. This is how you do crop pictures. This was a crop picture in 2013. So here's our man in the hovercraft. I had to find it. The bird is riding the hovercraft. And this is the propeller. This is the propeller of the crop picture. So we have to figure out how to read the propellers turning. And here's our friend again. Immediately we think 2. The number 2 comes up again. 2 of what? 2 cycles of Venus. We have the V, so 2 cycles of Venus is the indicated time. We see a 2 and a V. It's not that hard. And here we can look at it again. There's a serpent going around. So if you work out the mathematics, this may be too hard, the 2 and the V, we're talking about 2 cycles of Venus, and that's about 3 years, if you work it out. And that's how crop circle puzzles work. You have to get into it. I'm just giving you a summary. Now, this is either pretty high IQ puzzles, aren't they? I don't do them immediately. I might have to spend about a week doing each one. So if you don't understand it, that's cool. But you can see there is a puzzle, can't you? And they all talk about, they're all puzzles as when's he going to come? That's all the puzzles have to do. When's he going to come? When's he going to come? And it's not that long. So, in summary, our very tentative solutions suggest they might come as early as 2021. Now, I could be wrong, but they all say about 3 years. Now, I could be wrong, but in any case, they're coming. And they've done lots of puzzles. We know for a fact that they're coming, and we know for a fact they've done lots of clever puzzles telling when they're coming. Now, if the cat can't figure them out, that's my problem. However, that's the nature of what's being shown here, okay? A, they're coming, and B, they're puzzles to tell when they're coming, which are difficult to figure out. Everybody happy with that? Now, if I've got it wrong, I've got it wrong, but I'm just telling you my best estimate is about 3 years, which that would cause the Intel guys to go crazy, wouldn't it? Which explains why I'm banned from Facebook now. So that's the most likely thing. Fascinating, said Mr. Spock. Fascinating subject, yes. That's how I feel. I'm Mr. Spock also. So, now do you see now why crop circles have become forbidden knowledge? Do you understand now why they don't want me to tell people that A, they're coming to Earth, these friendly extraterrestrials, and B, it's not that long, and we don't know exactly, but it won't be that long. It won't be like 80 years from now. And now these say mothership all around the outside. So obviously now we know what mothership means. The mothership is coming. Okay? Now it's not hard. It's not a hard thing to figure out. So I hope I've communicated well. Once again, this talk was given in the honor of Mariana Flynn, who very sadly passed away recently of cancer, one of my good friends, and she did excellent work for UFO research to carry it forward in Australia, probably one of the leading researchers. Of course, Cheryl, thank you very much. Cheryl and Barry have done a wonderful job as well tonight. Thank you very much. And there are many thanks should go. I have to give thanks to Lucy Pringle, Steve and Karen Alexander, Paul Jacobs, Nick Bull, Mr. Gyra, the Hampshire Flyer, Jane, Hugh, Frank, all these people, Gary, there's all a big team of people who work on crop circles, so it's not just me. And all these people you see on the slide deserve much credit.
All right, thank you.